and welcome to the May 13th, 2025 council meeting for the Village of Holly. Clerk, please call the roll.
Weinberger.
Here.
Wendell.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Koskela.
Here.
Cole.
Here.
Kyer.
Here.
Brandon.
Here, we have a quorum. This meeting is in session. If you are willing and able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This brings us to the approval of our consent agenda. All items listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the Village Council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately immediately after consent agenda approval in its normal sequence on the regular agenda. Lisa, can you please read the consent agenda?
A. Agenda approval. B. Consideration of the approval of the Village of Holly Council minutes of April 8th, 2025. C. Consideration of the approval of the Village of Holly Council budget work session minutes of April 26, 2025. D. Consideration of the approval of the Village of Holly Council budget work session minutes of May 3rd, 2025. E. Consideration of the approval of the Downtown Development Authority minutes of April 3rd, 2025. F. Consideration of the approval of warrant 2025-005 in the amount of $84,988.94. And then there's going to be a correction because there should be a G next, which would be, and they would go through letter L. So G is consideration of resolution 2025-010, confirming the village president's reappointment of Linda Stouffer to the Village of Holly Downtown Development Authority. H, consideration of resolution 2025-011, confirming the village president's reappointment of Holly Herrick to the Village of Holly Downtown Development Authority. I, consideration by council for the approval of the Holly Farmers Market special event application. J, consideration by council for the approval of the Holly Area Community Coalition Teen Block Party special event application. K, acknowledgement of receipt of the draft fiscal year 2025/2026 meeting schedule. L, acknowledgement of receipt of the draft fiscal year 2025/2026 budget.
Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
I will make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Cole and a second by Weinbrenner. Any discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Ryan.
Yes.
Koskela.
Yes.
Weinbrenner.
Yes.
Cole.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Wendell.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes, motion carried. This brings us to presentations. The first presentation is a promotion at the fire department. Chief Watson.
Good evening, Council. Thank you. Honorable members of the Village of Holly Council and the citizens of the community, it's with great pride and appreciation that I introduce Kurt Nitschke, who is being promoted to Assistant Chief for the Village of Holly Fire Department. Kurt has served our department and our community with distinction for 6 years and over 43 years in the fire service. Throughout his tenure, he has displayed unwavering dedication, strong leadership, and a deep commitment to public safety. Whether responding to emergency calls, supporting our training programs, or mentoring young firefighters, Kurt has always gone above and beyond to serve the residents of Holly with integrity and compassion. His promotion to Assistant Chief is a reflection of both his operational expertise and a high level of trust he has earned among his peers, superiors, and community members alike. In his new role, Kurt will play an essential part in shaping the future of the department and continuing to uphold the strong standards of service our village expects and deserves. We are honored to have him in this leadership position and look forward to his continued contributions to the safety and well-being of our community. I personally would like to thank him for his continued support and leadership. Please join me in congratulating Mr. Kurt Nitschke as the next village manager assistant, or village assistant chief. I apologize.
I had that rolled out.
Yeah, you did. Tim looked a little nervous.
I had to start the meeting off right?
Do we need to make an amendment on that he's not assistant manager?
Let me see if I can get this.
That's what happens when you use ChatGPT.
Katie,
Only for the beginning.
if you want to come back here for the pictures, you can.
Don't make Katie mad. She's really the boss of the department.
She's got a pen.
Katie, I might need your help.
Yep.
Just go ahead and temporary it.
Just get it.
There we go.
Let's get a quick photo.
Congratulations.
I just wanted to say real quick, that photo, we all wish we had somebody that looked at us like that.
Madam President, do you want to take a couple minutes so people can shake Kurt's hand? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, let's just take a 2-minute break. So if some of the staff wants to mingle a bit, take pictures, and we will resume at 6:10.
I didn't know that you were up for an assistant there, Tim. It was all news to us.
That's how I sneak it in.
Pay attention to the school. We gotta remember that now. You write that down, everybody. Watch out for Tim to sneak it in.
Man, I feel like I missed something.
It's okay. I am. Because I'm at 13, yeah.
I said it.
One minute. 6:10 and we're back. So the second item is a proclamation in recognition of Pride Month. Tim, the floor is yours.
All right, so the proclamation is as follows. Whereas the Village of Holly, Michigan proudly recognizes and proclaims the month of June 2025 as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ Pride Month throughout our community. And whereas all individuals are created equal, deserving of dignity, respect, and the right to love freely. The contributions of LGBTQ individuals have profoundly enriched the cultural, civic, and economic tapestry of our nation. And whereas the Village of Holly is designated to fostering an inclusive environment that champions visibility and equality for LGBTQ individuals, celebrating the diversity that makes our community vibrant. And whereas while there is growing support for LGBTQ equality across society, there remains a critical need for ongoing education and awareness to combat discrimination and prejudice. And whereas our nation was founded on the ideals of dignity and worth of every individual, and the Village Council calls upon the residents of Holly to embody these principles, actively working to eradicate prejudice in all its forms. And whereas the observance of Pride Month not only raises awareness, but also provides support and advocacy for Holly's LGBTQ community, creating an opportunity for dialogue, collaboration, and the advancement of equal rights. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village of Holly Council hereby proclaims the month of June 2025 as Pride Month in support of the LGBTQ community. Let this proclamation serve as a call to action for all residents to engage in conversations of acceptance, to stand in solidarity of our LGBTQ neighbors, and to work together to create a community where everyone is celebrated for who they are. Together, we can build a brighter, more inclusive future for all. April Brandon, Village President.
Thank you, Tim. Moving on, at this time, we are opening a public hearing on CDBG reprogramming. Tim, will you please introduce this item?
I absolutely can. Let me get my notes. So this item for the Community Development Block Grant. So we have been receiving this funding for many years, and a lot of it has gone unspent since 2019. And according to Oakland County, we're supposed to keep a 1.5 ratio of spent to how much we maintain reserves. Unfortunately, a lot of the money hasn't been spent. Many of these programs that it was originally designed for, that we programmed it for, were for sidewalk improvements. In March, the staff submitted a request for proposals for completion of a sidewalk project we only received one bid for, and that after that bid, it was almost twice the amount that we had for CDBG. One of the problems with the CDBG program is that you have to follow all of the grant assurances and requirements, which include prevailing wages and compliance with a lot of things, which for developers makes it very hard to stay within compliance of. So in order to not lose these funds and have them returned to the county and make them stay within the community, one of the solutions that they recommended to us was to reprogram them to something such as code enforcement. And that's what we're asking to have it reprogrammed for. Is it something that we can utilize moving forward to pay some of our code enforcement funds? In order to do that, we have to do a public hearing, which we're doing now, in order to hear anyone's consideration or thoughts on this item, and then afterwards we can resolve, and staff will be able to submit the appropriate documents, which are in the packet, to county in order to reprogram these funds in order to utilize them so we don't lose them.
At this time, would any members of the public like to make any comments? As a reminder, at this time, comments should only be related to the public hearing.
Yeah, have to.
Yeah, I'm sorry, a motion, that was my mistake when I didn't do a motion to open the public hearing. So.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to open public hearing for the reprogramming of unspent CDBG funds.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Cascella, and we have a second by Wendell. Lisa, will you call the roll?
Cole?
Yes.
Weinberner?
Yes.
Cascola?
Yes.
Guyer?
Yes.
Wendell?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes, motion carried. Now do we skip to the part for public comment?
Yeah, public comment,
Okay.
yeah.
As I was saying, public comment for, at this time, the public hearing only. And please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Sherilyn Everly from 314 Hadley Street. My understanding is we're going to shift these funds from, unspent funds from sidewalks to code enforcement, which everyone agrees we certainly could use more of. I guess just a couple questions I have is how much? I don't have the number in front of me. And are we planning to go proactive code enforcement or reactive code enforcement? I've only learned these terms recently. The township actually went from reactive, which means we don't do anything until somebody calls and complains, to proactive, which means if we see something, we act upon it. So that's a question I have, is which approach are we going to use? And since code enforcement is done by the police department, will there be some accounting so that we know what part of this money was spent on code enforcement and not have it just get blown into the regular police budget? Thank you.
Thank you, Sherilyn. Anyone else? Hearing none.
As this is a public hearing, I'll actually can answer some of those questions too for the public in regards to this. Usually with public comments, we won't respond, but since it's a public hearing, so within the CDBG guidelines, we actually have to account for where it's being utilized within code enforcement and which communities it's used within. So it is for the low to moderate income level area, and so there's a whole map, and we have to annotate, and they have a whole program. So actually Chief Narsh and I, as well as Chief Watson, because they have with two different levels of code enforcement. We have the residential, we have the commercial, and they have the two different departments that work that. And so we have talked, because there's been a lot of talk about the lack of code enforcement in the past, and what does that look like? And so we are having discussions. In fact, we were just before this meeting talking about Thursday we're meeting to talk what does code enforcement look like? How are we going to be more proactive in it? How are we going to do that? And so that was a great lead-in, Sherilyn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Now, we had to do a motion to open it. Do we need a motion to close the meeting as well? Okay. I will entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
I heard a motion by Wendell, and I heard a second by Weinbrenner. Lisa, will you call the roll, please?
Cole?
Yes.
Weinbrenner?
Yes.
Cascola?
Yes.
Kyer?
Yes.
Wendell?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes, motion carried. Let's see. And I think this is bringing us to,
I believe we need to do
have to
a
consideration
resolution
of
a resolution to approve the actual item as
Okay.
well.
so do I have a first to consider this resolution?
Yes. I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-009 for reprogramming unspent past year's community development block grant funds to alternate projects in accordance with CDBG guidelines.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Kyer and a second by Ryan. Lisa, will you call the roll, please?
Cole?
Yes.
Weinbrenner?
Yes.
Cascola?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Can I interrupt and ask for discussion? That was my fault. So, any further discussion? Okay, we already did public comment for this, so I don't think that needs to be revisited. And will you please call the roll, Lisa? Yes, thank you.
Cole?
Yes.
Weinbrenner?
Yes.
Cascola?
Yes.
Kyer?
Yes.
Wendell?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes, motion carried. This brings us to public comment. Members of the audience may address council on any item not on the agenda. Those addressing council are asked to provide their name and address and will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. After each agenda item, there will be an additional 2-minute public comment period to speak to that item before council votes. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, but will not have a response at this time. Prior to addressing council, members of the public shall state their name and address for the record. Any public comment? Yes, please.
I'm Brittany Smaggy,
I'm Jesse Smaggy.
405 Fenwick Street. I'm going to try to do this in 2 minutes. Good evening. We are the Smaggies. Last month, we received a $1,079 water bill. We did not have a previous balance either. This bill stated we used 46,000 gallons of water in a single month's time. We have resided in the village for 6 years and never even used a quarter of that amount of water in a month. We typically use 4,000 to 5,000 gallons. The village sent out a tech who found no evidence at the time of a leak and even mentioned that our meter now shows us back to normal usage. We've had a lot of back and forth with Tim Price, Lisa Bone, and Brian Clausen about this matter. We even mentioned how the meter stopped working altogether back in 2022 for 4 months. Back in 2022, we had reported it to them. We asked for a tech to come out, nobody did, and after 4 months, the water went back to normal. During this current problem of this $1,000 water bill, the only solutions offered were a payment plan and a new meter that we would have to pay for. Although after a few weeks, they did say that they would cover the new meter. On April 29th, we paid $150 towards the $1,079 balance and agreed to call back to set up a payment plan. However, that week, it was our daughter's first prom, and I had my first MRI, so I was very nervous. I had a lot going on, and I lost track of time. I tried calling back on Friday, but then realized they are closed. I called first thing Monday morning, May 5th. I was told that we had to pay another $170 right then, or that our water would be shut off at 2 p.m. That was not only extortion, but illegal. Michigan law states a 10-day written notice must be given. I told them that I guess they will have to shut it off then, as we did not have $170 that day. It was not permission for them to shut off our water. It was a statement of defeat. They shut it off at noon of that day. Thankfully, Officer Bob, who they sent to our house to check on me, came to help, and he went back to the village to talk to them, and they turned it on at 3 p.m. I would like to imagine all of you with young children. Imagine being home for 3 hours without running water with a young child.
That was illegally shut off.
That was illegally shut off, yes. Out of fear of retaliation and further extortion, we reached out to our family and our parents to get help to get this paid off. We are not done fighting this, though. We have been working with Bob Hoffman. We've reached out to Help Me Hank from the news and Governor Whitmer, and we have plans to contact Mike Mueller, Alyssa Slotkin, and further news stations. We would also like to start a petition with residents to get enough signatures to ask the council for a formal audit of the water situation. We are not the only ones that have been affected by this. Big Papa's Pizzeria was recently billed for 83,000 gallons of water when their normal water usage states 9,000 gallons. The township offices that use village water also went through the same thing at this time. Bob Hoffman is working to get their water bill for our records. After all of this, every single one of our water bills have gone back to normal. The township offices and Big Papa's had plumbers come out, no leaks detected, no leaks found. So, my questions are, 1, who is going to hold the village offices accountable for their illegal practices of extortion and shutting off our water without notice? 2, what measures can and will be implemented so this does not happen to any other residents going forward, because other residents may not have the resources to ask family for help to get this paid off and may get their water shut off? 3, Brian Clausen stated a leak could have been caused by calcium buildup and that it could have came loose in the same month. If excessive calcium buildup,
I'll make a motion to give, was it Brittany?
yes, I'm almost done, I promise.
1 more minute.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carried.
Thank you. 3, Brian Clausen stated a leak could have been caused by calcium buildup that it then came loose. If excess calcium is a known issue by the head of DPW, what measures are going to be taken to correct that issue for residents going forward? We are asking for help and transparency from our elected officials so that this does not happen to us or anybody else again. And I know it states that you guys can't comment, but, so I don't, thank you, yes.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment on non-agenda items? Anna?
Anna Matson, 15091 Western Valley. I want to address something Mr. Price said at a budget meeting. He said, "We do not have a spending problem, we have a revenue problem." That is simply not true. This building alone is one example of your spending problem. A decision Ms. Brandon helped make. A decision that helped get us in the position we are in today. Now, Ms. Brandon, you said on the record that you made the best spending decisions with the information you had and that you always did your due diligence. If a resident, like me, knew how to read a budget and an audit, I would hope you would too. Explaining away your poor decisions will not cut it even when I knew how bad things were from reading an audit that was publicly available. But I do want to give credit where credit is due and thank Mrs. Kyer for having a backbone and voting against this office. Now, the village is broke and wants us, the taxpayers, to save them. However, it doesn't make sense to give a negligent government more money after they carelessly spent the money we gave them in the first place. Residents, including myself, have sounded the alarm on our finances for years, but those warnings were dismissed by even our new village president. But now that new staff is saying it, you are suddenly paying attention. Even Mr. Cascella said our financial situation is a shock, yet even I knew about it as a resident, and you went to many of the same meetings I did. Now, instead of taking responsibility for your actions and changing how you spend our money, this same government wants to raise our taxes so they can go on another spending spree. Except this time, you are not even giving the residents a say. I think some of you, or maybe even all of you, have forgotten something. You are not the boss here. You are not truly in charge. The voters are. But I do want to end on a good note. Year after year, time and time again, the village has proven that voting does matter, and you get what you vote for. We've seen the consequences of choosing leaders who have no idea how to look at and manage a budget, and we're living them now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Madsen. Any further public comment on non-agenda items? In the back.
Evening, Council. Danny Rasberg, 7287 East Holly Road. I just wanted to say we have a lot of strong leaders in our community. I'm happy about that. Social media and the web are a powerful tool, so I urge the public and all of you to use those tools, educate yourself, and help become part of the solution and not part of the problem. Community leaders, employees, everybody knows what the problems are. We need solutions. So just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
Hi there. Amy Ray, R-A-Y, 108 College Street. Back in 2020, approval was given to Venue 111 to begin its venue on College Street as part of a widely attended and quite controversial meeting. Everyone has been really happy with Venue 111 in terms of its addition to the community and overall what the owners bring to Holly. As part of that approval by Village Council in 2020, the item of parking needed to be addressed. I believe it was an open-ended strategy that would be tried. The community is understanding that there might have been an unwritten agreement that the venue 111 would be allowed to park cars for their events in Cyclone Park on the grass. We understand it was the lot, but then there's been a question over whether they can park on the grass. But last fall at a Village Council meeting, President Brandon at the helm, this item of parking on the grass in Cyclone Park, we're talking 30 cars in the cement lot and then 30 cars on the grass every Friday and Saturday night, pretty much. That was brought up, and former city manager Jerry Walker stated, "My bad, I said it was okay, that they should use prudence, and then it's okay." And President Brandon at that time last fall said that the lot can be utilized, but not parking on the grass, simply because, you know, it is a corporation. It would be different if it's like a civic event, a festival, a ball game, but this is a corporate situation. And then this month with warmer weather, you know, what was nice is that once Village Council said no parking on the grass, then residents literally with flashlights could go out and redirect and say, nope, that's not allowed anymore, you can park on the grass. So now in May, with warmer weather, the non-permitted, non-paid to the village, parking on the grass at Cyclone Park by Venue 111 with valet parking has begun again. There was slight damage on the grass because it was wet, it's been fixed, but I understand that City Manager Tim Price is meeting to understand what is that agreement, was it in writing, is it verbal? We all pretty much understand it was loose and open-ended, but I do know that several folks simply because people understand the parking on the front part of their properties, even though a lot of people do think it's excessive. But what residents are not prepared to do is to have parking also lighting up their backyards. And it feels rather unsafe to the majority of single women, actually, who live over there. So it's also probably not great for the park and the upkeep of the grounds, and it might cost extra to fix it and all kinds of things. And it might end up actually, that parking might actually start interfering with other civic events that might be planned. It's a real issue, so I'm hoping this is going to remain public for discourse. I did call the office about it, and I was told to do a FOIA request to understand what the agreement was. But as far as I knew, council said no parking on the grass last fall, and that's how we've all been going. But then it's cropped up again, and I've heard this expression, well, that was then, this is now, we have a new city manager. So we'd love public discourse about that because it does deal with a public park and public residents and all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Any further public comment on non-agenda items? Yes,
Is this
please.
for all agenda items, or is it just for that one?
You may not speak on any agenda items right now, but there will be a space for it during those agenda items.
Okay, so after she speaks, it's not 2 minutes additional for other people to ask?
No, there is no back and forth.
Okay.
So anyone else?
Every person gets 2 minutes.
Anyone
Right.
else for
So
public?
as I'm reading this up here, I was a little bit confused. I thought it was,
We can't have back and forth like this right now.
Oh.
Because your name would need to be said at the stand and you've already had your public comment. I'm sorry. So if there's no further public comment on non-agenda items. Okay. Moving on to new business. Lisa, will you please read item A of new business?
Consideration by council of a joint resolution between the Village of Holly and the Township of Rose authorizing police authority.
Tim, will you please introduce this item?
Yes, during the April council meeting, staff presented details regarding the village police officers, granting village police officers authority in the surrounding townships. This item is just one of those three that we talked about, a joint resolution with Rose Township to establish this authority. The reason we're just presenting one right now is because we've already been able to work this one through the village attorney as well as the township attorney with Rose, as well as the township supervisor. Again, this is a joint resolution. The key reminders of this, because these are the questions that get asked a lot, and I just want to make sure there's like complete clarification, and we actually clarified this with the police unions as well, and everyone is on board. This does not interfere with the state police having jurisdiction or responsibility in the townships. We're not taking over, we're not becoming the township's police force, and this does not provide any monetary or contractual obligations to either party.
Okay, do I have a first to consider item A of new business?
I will make a motion to approve the joint resolution between the Village of Holly and Township of Rose authorizing police authority.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Kyer. We have a second by Weinbrenner. Any public comment on this item? Hearing none, seeing none. Any discussion by council?
Madam President,
Yes,
how will we know that, I mean, I'm for this, for the protection of our officers, but how do we know that they're not gonna put something over us that has to go on for us, and they have to go out there, or they'd be here? How do we know that they're not gonna do that?
are you asking if their time is going to be appropriately divided between Holly and Rose?
Well, if something's happening in Holly and then something else is going on in Rose, they have to make a decision, do we go here or there, we've been told by the chief many a times that they would stay here, but there's no guarantee.
Well, may I call upon the expert to answer that, Chief?
I can also, and if I don't get it, chief, then go ahead.
There we go.
So, we're only gonna be, it's not changing any of the practices that we currently do. We're still only responding under the Mutual Aid Act. And so, we're only gonna be doing mutual aid calls, but what this does is, a lot of times our officers hear a call happening, it might be life, limb, or eyesight for someone in the township, and our officers are already moving to the scene. And they already are doing this. All this doing is covering them the liability that they wouldn't have without this protection. And so the priority is always going to be the village residents. We're only responding under mutual aid. Does that cover it, Chief? Yes, sir. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wendell.
Yep.
Anyone else? Council? Costello?
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to see, I don't think we need to have it in a motion, but I think we have gradually seen more calls to the outer townships, and I think we should keep that up. And then if our calls keep going up, maybe we reevaluate the policy. So, that was me.
Anyone else on council?
Yes, to follow up to Mr. Koskela's comment, is there any way potentially in the future that if we were doing more calls out there that we could ask for monetary reimbursement without any kind of contractual obligation?
And Chief, you might want to start walking to the stage for this one. So yes, we could, but that would be more under the form of, it would probably be under the form of if we had to do follow-on calls. Because the Mutual Aid Act prohibits us from actually asking for those expenses. However, if our officers go out and do follow-on things for that, then we could do that if you're asking without having a contract for it. But
Because I know we spoke before that
Yeah.
if you're asking a lot of times for money, that there's a requirement of, hey, we've got to be able to respond there within a certain time.
Go ahead, Chief.
Can you clarify that? I'd like
Yeah,
to.
the last time that we spoke about this, you guys talked about there's an expectation, right? When they're paying money, that they have an expectation that they're going to take precedence. And that's what I'm asking.
Oh, if they contracted on police service with us?
If we somehow were getting some kind of money from the township for that. Would there be
Correct.
an expectation?
There's an expectation of service, and we certainly wouldn't do that with the staff that we have for the village. But going to the question, can we rephrase that question one more time? It was,
So essentially, I think when I looked at the numbers previously, and I don't have them right in front of me, our calls per year have been going up to the outer townships. Now, my reason for asking that is I know up in Mount Pleasant, they lost their sheriff department. And when they lost their sheriff department, the state police said, don't worry, we're redeploying assets to the area and we'll handle everybody. So if that's happening and they can do that there, why can't they do that here? Because I've heard that the Michigan State Police has low amount of resources here. So if that's the case, then maybe we need to lobby somebody for more state police resources, or Rose Township needs to start lobbying for more state police resources.
fair enough. And to the manager's comment on the Mutual Aid Act, how that works, we all have that across the state. That's when they contact us. Normally, the way the Mutual Aid Act works is they're gonna say, hey, we need help. We've got a call that we're going on and we've only got one trooper. Can you assist us? Or there are no troopers available, can you take the call? What we do, it's difficult to policy frame that, because if the officers know that it's quiet and there's two officers on duty and it's a minor call, but it's really close, so that we take the totality of circumstances in and how we respond. There are several times where we've received calls, and I've only got one officer on duty because someone called in sick that night and I couldn't backfill that shift. And we're not gonna let them go out of the community. We're gonna serve the village first. So those calls continue, and if they do, outside of the mutual aid, the village could form some type of agreement with those townships that if there's a situation, and I think this is a fair discussion, if there are situations that are increasing where we're being called by the state police to be the primary unit in another community, because they can't staff it. And if it's a type of situation, life, limb, looks, and our officers have to respond, there ought to be some type of compensation back. Now, that's not an agreement that requires action, it's agreement that pays upon action. Because if we didn't act, and I think that's something that we may end up having to have a conversation about. I had quite a long conversation with the commander of the Metro North Michigan State Police Post down in Oak Park, whose post is in charge of the Groveland Detachment. And our conversation was about staffing, and unfortunately, he didn't have very good news either. They are continually losing staffing, and they're having an extremely difficult time to staff the post. So I don't know what post had that in Washington, or which?
I believe it was Mount Pleasant City.
Mount Pleasant. He was sharing with me across the state issues where they were being called upon, and they're not able to meet those requirements. So certainly, I'm not stating that they can't meet the requirements they've met here, but there are times due to staffing that it's extremely difficult, and they rely on those mutual aid agreements. But I think a contract on responding could be something that we could take a look
I
at.
think that, but a key difference, Councilperson Kyer, is that if we had a contract with them and that actually had those financial portions, the financial portions would be covering additional officers, additional vehicles that would increase our force size to cover the increased area. So, but that would not only be working in Rose Township, for example, but would also be covering Holly as well. So we'd have additional forces that would be able to do it. If we were to ever get to that point, again, that is not what we're talking about right now, and I don't want to confuse anyone watching at home. We're not talking about that.
I just want to reiterate, this does not remove the police force that we have in the Village of Holly or our services that we're going to do here. And nothing is changing that. This document or anything that we're going to do or another group staffing. Our dedication and focus is here, and the determinations those officers and myself make is Holly first, and if we have the staffing and we can take the call, we'll take it.
I just want to reiterate from our last discussion about this at our last meeting, this is really opening up doors for our SROs, right, our school resource officers. This is allowing a Holly Village resource officer to then go out to students' homes who are in the township, whether it's Holly or Rose, and protect them, which in turn is letting them do their job in the school system. Correct?
Thank you.
That's where
Yes.
we're at? Okay.
Now, with respect, we could designate the authority just to the SROs.
It could have been written that
So,
way.
and we're not, so it opens for everybody then.
Well, where's the SRO needs backup?
So then there's a situation as well.
Well,
I'm not against it, I just think there's,
I'm just saying, that,
One at a time. Mr. Wendell, you have the floor.
I'm just saying, it's like, I mean, like, she was saying the SRO, I know that originally, that's what we brought it up about was the SROs, and then we tagged everything else with it, because if the SROs need backup, because they're going into a volatile situation, and they need to have another officer with them, they won't have, Holly doesn't have authority there. But now we give our officers authority, if I'm understanding correctly, right?
I think the SROs started the conversation. That's where we started the conversation, is seeing that our officers were out there, our SROs were acting, and that they didn't have the liability protection. A lot of the times, this is a moot point, because in almost any other county in Michigan, the sheriff within the county grants that authority to cover it to all of the officers within the district. Oakland County is the one county that doesn't afford that authority to the other officers. And so, so we are doing this in order to give our officers that protection. And as we were doing that, as we were looking at SROs, we're saying, well, our other officers have been out there working too. We need to give them that liability protection as well. And so that's why we talked initially about just doing it for SROs, and we said, well, our other officers need to be protected too. So that's why we did this route.
And if I may, I can clean that up really quickly. Everybody's correct. Everybody's correct. So the discussion started with the manager and myself about the SRO issue, because they're out in all three of the townships roughly between 5 and 18 times a week are the numbers, just on home inspections, threat assessment inspections, child pickup drop-offs, and home visits. There's risk with that, but more importantly, our patrol officers fill in for the SRO. So if an SRO isn't in there, we'll bring an officer over and put them in. So anybody could be serving in that role. But just as importantly, what's been lacking is we're within any one of these townships, any officer on the department, as they conduct an investigation. We're going to be out in those communities interviewing witnesses, victims, perpetrators of crimes. We're going to be exercising search warrants, arrest warrants. Under the Mutual Aid Act, that would require a bunch of coordination, and a lot of times with troopers not there, that act it slows us down. And even the Michigan State Police agrees 100% with this. They were in the initial meetings, they support this, they understand it. There's a lot of activity that we do that this simply protects, and we appreciate that.
Thank you, Chief. Council?
We wouldn't want to send just an SRO officer out there by themselves, so this is why we're doing this. So let's say the state trooper's far away, and it's gonna take that trooper 30 minutes to get there, and the SOR officer already has to go out there. One of our officers, who's also sworn in, can head that way just in case.
That's a 100% real incident that could occur.
Right.
Yeah. And has occurred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Chief Narch.
All right, thank you, Council.
If there's no further discussion from council. Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Weinbrenner,
Yes.
Cascola,
Yes.
Kyer,
Yes.
Wendell,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes, motion carried. Lisa, will you please read item B?
Consideration by council of adoption of a 5-year plan for Ganshaw Park.
And Tim, will you please introduce this item?
And I'm going to ask our Utilities Director to come up to the stand, as he's been the point person for this with the Parks Commission, and I'll let him introduce this item.
Good evening, council. Council staff has been working with SISMA, Oakland County Parks, and our own Parks Commission to formulate a 5-year plan that will allow us to apply for grants and funding mechanisms to do the items that are in the plan. And then once we receive funding for that, then we would come back for approval through the Parks Commission and then council itself. So this is the first step in getting the process through the grants through Oakland County and SISMA.
Thank you. Do I have a first to consider item B of new business?
I'll make a motion to consider item B of new business.
I'll second the motion.
First by Wendell, second by Weinbrenner. Any public comment on this item? Hearing none, seeing none. Any discussion from council? Pascal?
Thank you. So if you guys have never, nobody has ever read the plaque there for Mr. Ganshaw, I encourage everyone to go read it and learn about him, because he was a civil servant for a long time. So I think it would be doing him proud to see that park really revitalized and have a nice plan set up with it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Clerk, please call the roll.
Cascola,
Yes.
Kyer,
Yes.
Wendell,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
Weinbrenner,
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes, motion carried. Lisa, will you please read item C?
Consideration of council to create a Holly Mill Pond Dam Committee.
And Tim, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, and I talked about this a little in our budget work sessions, as it's something that I've been just recently introduced to it. I know it's something that's been going on for a while. We just recently received back on April 28th, the report that's in the packet, which summarizes the existing condition considerations for the future planning of the Holly Dam at the Mill Pond. The attached report summarizes or estimates some costs that they think would be associated with the repair or replacement of the dam, which is in millions of dollars. We actually, staff met with Eagle this morning and talked about myself, Danny and Brian, and as well as our engineers. We talked with Eagle, and we were instructed that we'd be required to do a drawdown permit within the week. Simply put, we don't know when we are going to be allowed by Eagle to draw back up. And the purpose of the drawdown is they're just worried about the public safety of our earthen dam. And that with the lawsuits that are going on, I think they are just kind of really tightening down on dams across the state. So the purpose of the committee will be to research options for moving forward in regards to grant opportunities for research specifically, and can provide recommendations to council on course of action to go forward, whether it's to remove or restore our earthen dam. And if you have any other specific questions, I know that I've got Brian and Danny here, and we will try to answer any of them for you. Again, this is something that's kind of live because we're just having conversation about it this morning, so we're figuring some of it out right now.
Do I have a first to consider item B of new business?
I will make that motion.
Motion by Cole.
Oh, second.
I hear a second by Ryan. Lisa, will you wait a minute? I'm a liar. Any public comment on this item? Sherilyn? Oh, I'm sure glad I got myself.
Should I ask for my extra time in advance? My name is Sherilyn Everly, and I live at 314 Hadley Street. And we go through this about every 10 years. Oh, the dam is going to fail. We've got to do something about it. We don't do anything about it. As Tim said, 10 years ago, it would have been $1 million. Now it's $2 to $3 million. There are lots of issues. I live on the mill pond, you know that. I'm selfish, I love my house, I love my pond, and I'm gonna fight as hard as I can and as hard as any of you would for your neighborhood. First of all, a drawdown without notification, without public hearing, without due diligence. Like, really, how dangerous is it? If it blew tomorrow, how bad would it be? It wouldn't be nearly as bad as drawing down the pond intentionally and having our, and as you say, without knowing when it might possibly come back up, our property values are gonna go down. The amount, I'm going to protest, and I'm not gonna pay as much in taxes. And all of the other stakeholders involved in this, we're talking Rose Township. You go underneath the railroad tracks and you're talking the end of Coggeshall Street. That's depressed area there already. Why the heck would we want to put any more burden on them? Because I live there. If that dam goes out, it's already in that report that the damage would only be significant, not terrible, and it would only be property damage, not human damage. I would contend that if that dam goes, most of it's going to go into the wetlands across the street. And then once it gets past Church Street, it's going to go into acres and acres of more wetlands. So I don't want to be bullied into pulling out our dam because Eagle has a stick up their butt that this is what they do now. It's no different than the road commission putting roundabouts everywhere. This is currently what the Eagle needs to do, is to pull out people's dams. They call it freeboarding. I would like this council to show as much care and as much respect for the mill pond and its historical significance, it's been here 185 years, as what we've done for that building right there, that depot. Our mill pond is every bit as important as that depot. And there's not a whole lot we can do, but what I would ask of this council, I read the report, it said that you can do drawdowns up until and through October. I would ask you to put a moratorium on any drawdowns, at least until Memorial Day, if not until the end of October, so that we can approach this in a way that is civilized, that we can pull the stakeholders together. I don't care what Eagle says. If they want to tell us that we're breaking the law, it'll take them 6 months to do that. I'm just asking for some time and for some peace of mind that this is, I'm not going to wake up some morning and my pond is gone. And it's not just ours, it's the people that use it. There are 2 guys fishing in there when I left tonight. Every morning I have to duck the guy looking in my window who's out there fishing.
I'll make a motion to give Ms. Everly 1 more minute.
2.
I will second that.
And I also want to say
All in
that
favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
I know that the Village Parks has done a lot of work in that park. That is the headwaters. That is the beginning of the National Shiawassee River Heritage Trail. If we take out the dam, there's nothing we can do to help with the river. Right now, I know we can raise the slats a little bit if it gets to be, you know, that we can hold the water back if we know a drought's coming, and we can let a little more out on the weekends so that people can still kayak, because that's an economic generator for our community we haven't taken advantage of. So if you take any action on this tonight, I would ask that you put a moratorium on it at least till the end of October. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Everly.
On a drawdown, I would be specific, moratorium on a drawdown.
Any further public comment on this item? Yes, please.
I want to correct one thing. She said Memorial Day.
Oh, would you mind coming to the stand and saying your name and address for the...
My name is Robert Damowitz. I live at 7300 Sagamore Drive in Clarkson, Michigan. But I own 7 acres on the Mill Pond. And I've had a lot of good fun out there, but only for about 75 years. Now, I'd like to bring to the attention of the council an event that happened in August of 2021. I was very fortunate enough to meet a gentleman, Robert Woodby, who was a dam inspector for the Bureau of Land Management. For those of you who don't know, all the dams on the east side of the Mississippi River are overseen by the Corps of Engineers. Everything west of the Mississippi is overseen by the Bureau of Land Management. Robert Woodby was his name. He inspected all the dams you've ever heard of out west. The Cooley Dam, the Hoover Dam, all those things. Really a big-time dam inspector. At the time, Tom McKinney was the village president. And Tommy knew that I owned property on the Mill Pond. He said, say, listen, we're kind of worried about the dam. I said, well, listen, I just happen to have this fella come out and look at it. So we made arrangements to get together. There were 4 of us there. There was me, Adam Schmeider, who lives in the old Toosdale house right next to the dam, who sometimes does some of the work on the dam. Tim Stallcup, who was your former wastewater treatment director, who unfortunately is not here tonight because he's a lot of fun. And of course, Tom McKinney. Now, McKinney really thought that we were going to be out there for about 20 minutes. But I brought geographical maps, I bought watershed maps, I bought sounding rods, I bought measuring tapes. I brought everything that we needed to do a significant dam inspection. We were there for 3.5 hours. The entire structure was measured, the width, the height, the length of the concrete structure itself, the length of the dam. Soundings were made to a depth of 6 feet everywhere around the dam, around all the concrete in particular, and along the face of the earthen embankment, which has been re-armored, which was really great to see. We also did estimates of the cubic feet per second that would be flowing through the existing outlets where the boards are raised up and down, and how that affects what's in the pond. You have to remember that pond is a watershed for 40 square miles. It's not just the village of Holly, it's well into Rose, it's well into Springfield, headwaters. In Oakland County, we have the headwaters of 6 watersheds, the Shiawassee being one of the major ones, one that flows north. So we were there, like I say, Tom was getting kind of bored, because after all, his time was very valuable. After 3.5 hours, Mr. Woodby said in engineer talk, this dam's not going anywhere. So I would remind the village council at this time, and the gentlemen who are responsible for this, that there would not be a village.
I will make a motion to give him 1 more minute.
I will second that.
Second by Cole. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carried.
Thanks very much. Off topic, I'd like to thank Mr. Weinbrenner for not arresting me when I was a young man.
Shame on you, Ira.
We have 1 minute.
But in closing, I'd like to say that there would not be a village of Holly without the dam. It is a historical asset to this community, not to mention the work it does for flood control for everybody between here and Fenton. But it is a significant structure that has been adjudicated by one of the best dam inspectors that is available, who worked for me for free, that the dam's not going anywhere. And I would certainly agree with the sentiments of Ms. Everly that drawing down the mill pond in haste is probably not a good idea, and that drawing it down for winter is probably a good idea. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Any further public comment on this item?
He's not doing public comment, he's getting ready for your questions.
Okay.
Just so you know, I heard Ms. Kier put the timer on you.
I'm not as long-winded as our police
It's
chief,
only
I
fair if you do
promise.
that with Chief, it's only fair if you do that with Chief Narsh too.
Yeah.
So,
But I am available for questions, but I do want to make a couple comments. With this, I've been advocating with Eagle for the last 5 years about keeping the Mill Pond Dam, that it is advantage to our community. It is the reason our community is here. And Eagle is on their kick, unfunded mandates, I call them, and they've done it through several different projects in several communities I work for, but they are adamant about this drawdown. We argued with them and said, well, what if we don't do it? And Mrs. Everly's correct, they will do enforcement action, and it could take a while, but it's up to council to direct staff how they want to proceed. But both myself and Mr. Price advocated to keep the dam at least through Labor Day to allow, you know, that to happen. And the Eagle has been adamant with us that they want this drawdown permit in place, not that it has to be, it still has to go through the approval process, so.
If Eagle was to do the drawdown without our approval, what would that look like? Are we looking at a lawsuit?
Yes, they said that if we refuse to do what they are ordering us to do, they would hire contractors and engineers to do the work, and then they would sue us for cost recovery.
we went through all the different processes of, yeah, I said, well, first of all, like, is this a recommendation or is this an order? And they're like, well, we're gonna order you to do it. And I was like, well, I might need an order on this, because, you know, I mean, and they're advocating for public safety. We don't want to talk against public safety, but we're also kind of in agreement on, the status of it. And then Brian also said, what if we do nothing? And then that's when they talked about, then we'll engage in, litigation. We'd force enforcement, we'd do it ourselves, and then sue the village. And so we were on there for a while, going over different courses of action. We want to, advocate for public safety. We also just know that fiscally, like, we just don't have the funds in order to do any of the replacement or removal efforts at this time. And so, or the studies. And one of the issues that we found out today as well is, we thought, we're gonna, if we do the drawdown, the state Eagle has a dam risk reduction grant that we could get that can give us maybe some money for research and removal. Well, because they've been having so many lawsuits on that, this is the last year they're doing it, and it's no longer available after this year. So so we can't, so that's not even gonna be an option. So that's when I say, when we do this drawdown, we don't know when we'll be able to draw it back up.
And of that $15 million that was available, a majority of it was for removal of dams. Then if you wanted, they said that they had a small portion available for rehab or complete replacement, but it was like a 3-year process. You had to keep applying, you had to keep going through the process, and they said sometimes by the 3rd year, but it was a very small portion of that $15 million that would be available for that. And it would be a multi-year application process to get that.
I'd like to hear if you have an estimate, a cost comparison of us doing it versus we wait and Eagle does it without our approval.
That we have to work with the engineers. I'm not an expert. My biggest concern is soil remediation or sediment remediation. I first found out about that with a conversation I had a couple years ago with Eagle, and I was like, based on the history of the dam and what's been there, there's a lot of unknowns for the sediment remediation. Based on, the amount of sediment that may or may not have to be removed, those costs could easily top replacing the dam. The argument from Eagle was, if you replace a dam, you're still in the dam business, you're required for maintenance. The laws are changing for significant hazard dams about inspections, maintenance, and all that, because Edenville is what I compare to the Flint water crisis. Edenville has created all these new enforcement actions by Eagle. They went from having about 2.5 staff to about 10 staff members now, so they have more staff to enforce these and inspect these dams, so.
Just a moment. My last question is, could we have a special meeting, a public hearing with Eagle to present to council and the public what their experts say necessitates this action?
They were agreeable to that before today's meeting. We can check with them. I know we're working with our engineers to get this permit into them because they want to see it on their site so they can start the process of approving it and then go from there. But we can get a hold of Eagle and ask them to come out and do a special meeting.
Tim, can I ask your input on what that holdup would do?
What the holdup would,
If we requested Eagle to do a public special meeting, a public hearing?
well, they have to do a public hearing anyways to do the drawdown, like because they would, for the permit process.
That's not what I meant.
Oh.
I meant if we were gonna go forward in doing this, to have them present to us why it's necessary.
We could ask, I was trying to buy whatever time I could with them, and they were essentially, I mean, they want us to submit the permit tomorrow. Like, that was, close of business on the 14th is the timeline they gave us. But I think we bought a little bit of time, I'm talking the end of the week kind of thing, to submit this. We can reach back out. We've been doing a lot of this through our row engineer, Doug Scott, and we can see if they can present this information because council wants to be more informed on it. And that's kind of the reason that we were talking about having this committee built, is in order to start doing, doing the research, having some of these conversations where we just don't have enough staff in order to take this on as a full-time objective.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Can we have somebody else for another opinion on the dam to do an inspection on it besides this road?
Well, we had SME do this. So this is a separate organization that provided us.
It's a
this report.
geotechnical engineering firm that did the assessment, SME, Jeff Kanzinga, I think is how you say his last name. Rowe doesn't have an environmental engineer or an engineer that does that type of work, so they subcontracted it out to SME. SME did an assessment in 2005. In that time period, we did some improvements to the earthen dam. Eagle, there's some disagreement about the type of material. The contractor we use said that he does this all over. They say that we expedited the failure of the earthen dam by the type of material we use. I argued, we had 2 500-year storms last year. We had a 1,000-year storm this year, and we did not have any failures. They said, well, it's not a matter of if, it's when. And I'm like, well, we've had the perfect conditions to have these failures. In addition, the Davisburg Dam is gone. We're seeing a lot more flow from upstream to us, and we've been able to handle that without any failures, so.
I know that your employees from the DPW were out there working to kind of minimize some of the damage from those storms. What would the damage have looked like during this year's storm if we didn't have all hands on deck?
That was some clogging of the dam portion itself, so once we cleared it out, it allowed the gates to function properly. There was nothing that I heard of that was affecting the earthen dam. They want the earthen dams and new recommendations to have more like a sieve, so that when the pressure builds up, it just sort of seeps through there and then works its way downstream. That wasn't the case 150 years ago when they originally built the dam, so.
Council? Shannon?
So what we're asking for right now is just to create a committee. We're not making any decisions on what to do with this dam or anything. We just want a study committee.
I'm sorry to interrupt, trustee Cole. Your permission to go. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear on that. We're not making decisions tonight on what to do with the dam. We just want to start a study committee so that we can speak to Eagle about this. Right? We're not
Right, but we
submitting
have,
things.
we
We're not
have,
taking it out.
we have an order from Eagle to submit this drawdown permit, and they want the drawdown to start sooner than later. But by starting this committee and hopefully getting Eagle out here, staff has been trying to delay this process so that we can get through this season with it. And to me, it would be easier to do the work during the cooler months than during the middle of the summer,
Okay.
so.
Madam President.
Do you need to witness that, Mr. Narsh? Please feel free. Okay. Costello?
Thank you, Madam. So what are other municipalities, what's happening with other municipalities? If this is happening a lot, are other municipalities fighting this and going to court? I mean, the lawyers probably love this, but are any municipalities winning on this?
I don't know the status, but they did say that they had several other municipalities that were in the same situation.
I know the Edenville Dam, that was just on the news this morning, that the judge has approved for the lawsuit to move forward against the state for that, so.
Now, I guess a couple things here too. Ms. Cole did bring up, we're not actually, on the agenda at least, it's not to make recommendations or whatnot, but that doesn't mean we can't say we're doing whatever. I guess we could amend it. But, I had one other item. Give me a minute, I'll figure it out.
Council?
I do have just one question, because I am no dam expert, but when we talk about drawing it down, how much of the water is going to go out of there? Is it like the dam is going to stay open and it's just continuously coming over?
That's a great question, and we asked that too, because there's different levels that we could draw down. Usually we can do it at 2 feet increments, is what I've been told, right?
Yes.
And so, we asked, like, can we just do just a few inches at a time till we get to Labor Day? Till we, because we want to, this is coming this is coming all of a sudden, although it's something that's been going for a while, it's something that's all of a sudden the residents in there, we want to give them the summer, is that a possibility? And I think that they want, is it a complete drawdown or is it 4 feet?
Yeah, they want 4 feet, which in the past, when we did a drawdown for a winter drawdown, we would lift the gates up on the south dam, about halfway up. Once it got high enough from there, then we would remove those completely, and then we would take the other 2 gates out on the north dam. So it's like a 4 to 5 foot drawdown, but when you say 4 to 5 foot drawdown, it's more like 30 to 40 feet from the northern shore, the water recedes, so it's not 4 to 5 feet they lose, it's more like a 30 to 40 foot drawback from the north shore, so.
And then secondary question, if I may, this includes both dams, correct?
Correct.
Like when we talk about removing them?
Yes.
Okay.
They want it to return to its natural state.
Mr. Cascella, have you had time to formulate?
Yes, thank you. So, they want a permit. Can we say the date is after Labor Day?
We asked that and they said, no, they want to see it in their system by weekend.
Well, I mean, give them the permit, but the date we're gonna do.
No, they
is-
wanted us to start removing water immediately.
Yeah, they wanted, well, June 3rd, I believe, is what Doug Scott said he was gonna ask on the application. So, that would be the start of the drawdown.
So potentially to buy us time, can we put in a permit for after Labor Day and they can deny us and have to bring it back to the drawing board? Because I would like after Labor Day. as
Do I have to
council
answer that on
member.
public record?
I mean, if we're directing it for after Labor Day, they may come back and deny that, and it's something we have to address.
I would
but
say
if
that we
we're
put it in,
thinking-
so I'm sorry, I would say we put it in for that in hopes that they would approve it. Not to buy
Correct.
time, but in hopes they would approve it.
Well, I do like that, just saying.
And we've mentioned that with our engineer that is creating the permit to ask for exceptions and give us some time frame, and so.
So, excuse me, guys, so we could possibly vote on after Labor Day to do this?
I don't know if we're, council can recommend the staff to do that, but Eagle is also saying they want to see certain things. If not, they're gonna escalate enforcement, is what the letter they sent to us said. That if we don't do certain things, one is submitting this permit in a timely fashion, they're gonna escalate enforcement. So,
If staff were to, if council were to approve that, you just have to know that we are going against Eagle's recommendations. And they can come back and say, no, we can't do that, but I want you to know if that's what you're asking us to do, then it would be.
there would be escalation of enforcement through Eagle.
If they came back and said no, we would have to wait till the next meeting to approve everything, right?
I'm not sure of, Brian, you know the process a little bit more, I've not done the drawdown.
I think with the Eagles process and the permitting process, they don't expect or need council's approval to do this. They're saying they're recommending is what they're saying, and and Tim had brought this up, well, if you're recommending, that's not necessarily what our council may not want to do that, and they said, well, no, then we'll escalate enforcement and we'll order you to do it. So we could wait till they order it, but then there's gonna probably be a fine associated with it.
Another option that I would like to bring before the committee and to research and discuss and bring to council would be the potentiality of petitioning the Oakland County a water resource commissioner to possibly take this over as a county drain, as it is a shared resource with Rose Township. It goes under roads. That way, we're taken out of it. I mean, I don't know all the details on this yet. I don't even know if they would take it, but it's something that they can research. We can have the discussion with Oakland County, and that would just remove some of the financial liability. We still are a property owner on it, so we would be assessed if they did anything. However, it would kind of take us out of the middle, but then we lose control of it too. But it doesn't look like we have much control right now as well. So just as a aside, it's one of the things that we want to talk about in this committee.
Okay. So the motion before us is simply to approve creating the Holly Mill Pond Dam Committee.
Yeah, and so essentially what that would look like is right now we would determine what the scope of that would be, as far as what we'd like them to do, and over the next month solicit people that are interested to give it to staff, to the village president, and decide what that committee is at the next meeting. And like what it's actually comprised of, it'll be a motion with the specific language of its purpose and the members to begin with.
Jim?
Thank you. So is this whole committee going to be moot if they want a permit by the end of the week? They're going to...
No, because the committee will be like, then, once we draw down, we have to decide, are we going to remove, are we going to replace, are we going to petition the water commission? So they're going to give all the researches, the research and recommendations to council as far as the next steps.
Okay.
I mean, because we don't know like what the remediation efforts would be, like, because we don't know what that looks like when we bring the water down. And so there's gonna be a lot of follow-on actions. And that's one of the things that I talked to the Eagle about this morning is like, we don't know the causality yet. And so if we're doing this too fast, we haven't really seen some of this. So that's why we wanted to kind of go a little slower and more intentional and not just do a complete drawdown right away.
One other item. Mr. Clausen, I know you did briefly mention it at our budget workshop, but that was 5.5 hours. So there was probably some people that didn't notice or catch that one particular line. Could you just briefly talk about the issue in 2021 without a permit?
The earth and dam repairs?
Yes, sir.
It was during COVID. I had several conversations with one of the engineers with Eagle, explained to them what was going on. There was a permit pulled for that through Eagle, so they were aware of what was going on. They came out to do an inspection for the new drawdown permit we have, because they're 5-year drawdown permits, so we were looking to have another 5-year drawdown permit. They denied that and said that we did work outside the scope of the permit, and that by adding clay to the downstream side of the earthen dam, it changed the slope, it changed the permeability, and they wanted immediate action. So my argument was, well, last year we had a very wet summer and spring. This year we had a wet spring with several big storms, and we have no action. Plus, we're seeing the first spring melt and thaw from the Davisburg Dam being gone, and we have not had any issues. I understand their concerns, and there's a liability issue, because if it does fail, but like Ms. Everly said, there's property damage, it's not life and limb. There's 2 dams that are in place, so the water can be diverted in 2 different directions. So we've had large rains, and I think it's made it over the top of the spillway, but it's not made it to the road, or, and on the other side of the street, there is a floodplain, and we've had some concerns there because, there is some buildings in the floodplain, but once again, those aren't items that the village has control over, because that house is actually in Rose Township, so.
Thank you.
And again, these are the kind of conversation we want to have with the committee, to have a better understanding, to provide all of this information and understanding. Because again, we were having these conversations this morning, so we haven't had enough time to really dive really deep into this to provide a comprehensive report from our end to answer a lot of these.
Okay. Any further discussion, council?
Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Tyre,
Yes.
Wendell, Ryan,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
Weinbrenner,
Yes.
Koskela,
Yes.
Brandon,
Yes. Motion carried. Just so this is known, council, if you ever have an emergency of any nature, you do not need my permission to leave. Just leave. Lisa, will you please read item D?
Consideration of council to schedule a special meeting to conduct a public hearing on June 10th, 2025 at 6 p.m. to begin the Police and Fire Operations Special Assessment District process.
Tim, will you please introduce this item?
Yes, so we discussed this at our budget work sessions, and because of the timeline for some of this, the village attorney and I hadn't had a chance to discuss, the special assessment district process. Since then, we've had a lot more conversations.
Order, please. Thank you.
We've had a lot more conversations about this item, as well as the village attorney has been able to kind of hash out what this process looks like, how much timeline we need, and provide us some of the resolutions, which we did not actually, weren't able to get until after this new business item was on our agenda. And so I don't know if the 10 June timeline is going to work, which I kind of want to discuss the process. I don't know if the village attorney wants to weigh in here too, but in order to do the whole process, the first thing we need to do is create a special assessment district. And then the second, we have to do a second public hearing that is actually the approval of the special assessment district. And if we want to get it on the tax rolls in a timely fashion, we would need to, I believe the 20th of June is when we need to have everything finished by. Whenever we do a public hearing for these, we need to provide advance notice, not only within the newspaper, but also we'd have to send out notification by mail to every resident. And so we need times to do all of those things, which are outlined in the resolution. Actually, I've got the example of the first resolution is here. I'll put it on the screen as well.
It is difficult to hear the manager. Order, please. Excuse me. Order, please. It is very difficult to hear the manager. Thank you.
I'll put the resolution up here. And really, this is just the, let me see if I can zoom in too, because you can't really see that. And I can read it as well. Essentially, for this first resolution, all it is for allowing us to schedule a public hearing in order to establish a special assessment district. So it's not establishing it right now, it's only giving us guidance in order to schedule this meeting. Is that correct? Okay.
So it's a multi-step process. It's going to eat up some time. So if you were to proceed and schedule something, you're not locking yourself into a special assessment. All you're doing is you're just saying, we're taking the first of several steps to evaluate that option.
And so in order to meet those timelines, I believe in order to get it in the newspaper, in order to mail it out, the dates that I looked at, and again, we're going to have to, we talked briefly about the 10th of June as one of those dates, but to get it on for a first public hearing, I think the earliest we could do would be the 29th of May. And I just wanted to check availability if we wanted to go for that for the first public hearing, and then potentially scheduling the second public hearing on that 10th of June date that we had previously discussed. And so, and as everyone's looking at their calendar, because I don't think you can read that up there, I will read this for the people in the audience. It's a resolution regarding financing of the police and fire protection services by special assessment. Whereas the village currently provides police and fire protection services throughout the village, and whereas the village is concerned about its ability to not only maintain the current level of police and fire protection services that it provides, but to provide enhanced police and fire services throughout the village, and whereas PA 33 of 1951, MCL 41.801, authorizes the village to defray the costs and expenses of police and fire protection services, including those related to the general operations by special assessment on the properties to be especially benefited, and whereas the village wishes to explore the option of defraying the expenses of police and fire protection services by special assessment, Now therefore, be it resolved that the village council hereby directs the manager to estimate the cost and expense associated with the police and fire protection services and to file those estimates with the village clerk. The village council directs that the hearing shall be held, and this is the date that we would have to determine, on the estimates and on the questions of creating a special assessment district and defraying the expenses of the district by special assessment of the property to be especially benefited. The village council directs the clerk to give notice of the public hearing in the manner required by the Open Meetings Act and by publication in a newspaper of general circulation in the village no less than 5 days before the hearing. And then all of at the regular meeting, village council today that we would schedule, that's what it reads at the bottom. So again, all we would be approving right now is selecting a date that we do the first public hearing to establish a special assessment district. That's the only thing that would be on the agenda item for that night, so the residents could come out and have their voices heard.
Thank you, Tim. Do I have a first to consider item D of new business?
I have a question. Do we need to then amend item D?
Yes, we would have to amend item D to have the date that council selects for that first. Actually, we would probably amend the item to approve the resolution 2025-012, which is to resolution regarding financing of police and fire protection services by special assessment, because that's the first resolution that we would need in order to start this process. Is that correct?
Really, to get hung up on the resolution, just you need to set a date. Nothing is going to happen until you set a date and you do some of the preliminaries. So that would be my urge to you tonight is, if you're interested, set a date.
So looking at the motion as is presented then?
No.
No, we would have to set the date of May.
Oh, set the date for
29th, right?
May 29th, got it.
If council is available and willing to do that.
Okay, let's see. So, why doesn't everyone look at their calendars real quick first?
I'm good.
I suppose. Yeah, I'm good. Do I have a first to consider scheduling a meeting on May 29th at 6 PM to begin the Police and Fire Operations Special Assessment District process?
I will support that.
We have a motion by Cole.
Second.
We have a second by Kyer. Lisa, will you call I'm a liar. Any public comment on this item? Ms. Everly?
Can't have an open mic. My name's Sherilyn Everly. I'm from 314 Hadley Street. My questions are, is this special assessment district the entirety of the village? And I always have a question about trailer parks. They don't pay nearly as much as we do. And if a trailer park gets a special assessment, is that different than a property tax?
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? Seeing none, hearing none. Council discussion, please. I think it's in the nature of that meeting, the special assessment district process. Does that mean that that would include considering what that district might look like?
That is one of the issues. That's one of the very first issues is what does the district look like? What are its boundaries? And by statute, the exemption for folks who are not going to be covered by a special assessment are those exempt from taxes under the General Property Tax Act only.
And then even though we might have some services outside of Holly, we wouldn't be able to include them in the district without an approval from their boards, correct?
Right.
Okay. Council?
Does the DDA capture any of the special assessment, or is that something completely different?
Their TIF capture?
Not the TIF, the actual tax capture they get from the village and the DDA.
This is a separate, completely separate.
Okay.
Council? Okay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Port of Order, did we decide on the date? Did we approve that date?
Oh, I read the motion as May 29th.
Great.
at 6 PM. Please call the roll. Thank you.
Wendell. Ryan.
Yes.
Cole.
Yes.
Weinbrenner.
Yes.
Cascola.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes, motion carried. At this time, I'd like to ask council to excuse Councilman Wendell from these votes.
I will make that motion.
We have a motion by Kyer.
I'll second that.
We have a second by Cole. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carried. Council reports. Is that where we're at?
I think manager report.
All right, manager report first, please.
So, as you all know, the primary focus of this last month has been not only our,
Your
my time's up.
Your time's up.
Our primary focus has been the budget, and then reviewing it, I would encourage any residents that are, interested in this process, what we're talking about with the special assessment, to please watch the budget work sessions. I will try to, because, we want to have complete transparency of where we're at, how we got here, and like what the process is in the future, and how we're looking to right the ship of what we've been created. And staff and council has been working diligently in order to, fix this, which we've kind of inherited over a long period of time. But if people are interested in having further discussions, I'll try to make as much information available, put stuff on the website, put stuff on our social media, and have, town halls if needed, to explain this process and exactly what we're looking to do so that, we can have complete understanding of this. The other thing that we're working on is we're also going into our collective bargaining agreements, our union negotiations, in the face of having all these budget situations, and that we're asking our police and our fire, who are some of the, our police, fire, our DPW, who are some of the, lowest paid in Oakland County, to continue working with us. And, so far everyone has been, just understanding of the process and working with us. And so I want to thank them, but also, just as everyone's listening, if we want to continue our services, if we want to continue working, having, the great team that we have, we need to do some of these actions that we're talking about. We continue to do coffee with the manager every Monday before council meeting. If anyone is interested, at Battle Alley Coffee from 8 till 10. And, we'll answer any questions, have an open discussion, where we don't have to have mics, we're not recording. If you have questions, I want to talk to people about any of the issues that are going on. Our next, since this last meeting, the village president and I had a town hall session on April 16th. Where, again, it was just in this room, we all sat in a circle and kind of had conversation about whatever anyone was interested in talking about. And it's a good way to understand, to ask open questions, and where you're not, we're not just staring back at you, and you can ask questions and, expect some kind of answer. The next town hall session we're doing quarterly is scheduled for August 13th at 6 PM in this room. I also just want to keep getting the word out there, I have it up there, that our Independence Day fireworks celebration will be on July 3rd this year and next year. That was what we were able to get with fireworks. Before I got here, that's what the previous administration was able to get in our contract. So I don't want people showing up on the 4th and expecting fireworks, because they already have happened. So I'm going to say it every opportunity I get. That's why we're calling our Independence Day celebration, not our 4th of July celebration. And another note, Chief Watson, if you would, he doesn't know I'm going to talk about this right now, but I've got a few things I want to just talk about with, if you want to go up to the mic too, you can talk about that. So, knowing our budget situation and the things we're doing, Chief Watson has done an awesome job of getting resources from other places. And so, he got a couple of donations that was able to provide him some additional equipment from outside sources. And so I just wanted to give you an opportunity as well, because in our manager's report, I know it's in our documents, but we got $5,000 from Nick the Tree Guy to get us some water rescue equipment, if you want to talk just for a moment about that.
Oh, yeah, great, thank you. In your council packets, I did show you two press releases. One was released yesterday, and one will be released next Monday. I've been working with Tri-County Times, and thank you for that. State Farm, Mark Carney has donated $1,000 to the fire department. We purchased an EV disconnect, so anytime an EV vehicle becomes compromised in a car accident, off the road, runoff, whatever it may be, we're able to disconnect the batteries safely with this new tool that cost about $1,000 to safeguard not only members on the road, but our staff. Secondly, which will be released on Monday, you guys got a first kind of peek at it. Nick the Tree Guy donated $5,000 to the Village Fire Department. We purchased 4 new dry suits and 4 new life jackets. Our dry suits were from the 1980s and every one of them had a hole in it. So can you imagine going in any of our bodies of water in January, February, March, or even today with a dry suit that leaks? So, you know, asking our staff to do these things, we were able to get some additional resources provided to us from outside entities. And I'm so thankful for our community members, our business owners, and my staff. I am not going to take full credit for this. Kurt Nitschke, who we just promoted to Assistant Chief this evening, received the State Farm grant, and Sergeant Hardman, Katie Hardman, received the grant for, from Nick the Tree Guy. I encourage my staff weekly, if they see something, an opportunity, seize it. They don't need my permission. I'm not a micromanager. Anything that's going to make us better as a team takes a village. So thank you for that opportunity. I appreciate that.
And before you leave, another thing I just want to let council know is that on May 22nd, Oakland County Medical Control Authority is going to be acknowledging Chief Watson in exceptional patient care. And so he's going to be receiving an award on May 22nd at the Medical Control Committee meeting. So it just, all of my department heads are amazing, and I'm very appreciative of them. So. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Okay. Does any other staff, would any other staff like to make a report?
I just have a couple things.
Yes, please.
So I just wanted to reiterate something that Manager Price had said. So we are working diligently right now on taxes. We have to get them out to the printer no later than June 20th so that they can be mailed and sent to residents. Additionally, I'd like to request that we have a meeting of our Personnel Committee because we have our healthcare is up on June 1st and we have to make a decision by June 1st. And then lastly, I'm working with the Deputy Finance Officer, and we're going to be doing budget amendments for this year's budget. So we will be working on those and getting those to you trying to get you by the June meeting.
Perfect. Thank you. Make it so. Anyone else? Okay. Moving over to Cole.
All right, well, I do have an update from Haya. They will be walking in our Memorial Day Parade. They wanted the public to keep an eye out for them. They've been doing some amazing things. Recently, they were able to award $1,500 scholarships to 2 Holly High School students. One is Ambriel Hoffman and the other is Alexis Culver. They will be Ambriel is heading to study pre-law at MSU, and Alexis will be studying biology at U of M Flint. So super awesome things that they're doing there. They're still trying to raise money, and Fueling Kids is behind, and we do have hungry children in Holly who still need your help. So keep an eye out for any other fundraisers. They could use your help.
Thank you. Kyer.
Yes, Parks met last week. We're just busy working on finishing out this year's projects. We will be getting some new toddler playground equipment for Lakeside Park to augment the equipment that's already there. We did speak about the cyclone parking agreement, and the Parks Commission would like us to look into that as a council. We also talked about the Shiawassee property that we have, and what future plans we might have for that. We're looking at low impact things out there just because of the proximity of the property. Holly Days Committee also met last week. We're finalizing a lot of details, securing vendors, and that is it.
Thank you. Ryan?
I would just like to urge everyone out there listening or in the audience to reach out to us if you have any questions. All of our emails are listed on the website. I know I've got quite a few emails from residents, and I've been asking Tim all these questions. I'm sure he's annoyed with me this past week, so I got a lot of them. So just keep reaching out, and we'll get the answers as we find them out.
Thank you. Weinbrenner?
Nothing tonight, man.
Koskela?
Thank you, Madam President. Can we find out more about what is happening with water? Is that something we could ask staff about? Permit?
I intended to as well. Go right ahead, ask.
So 46,000 gallons, one of the residents had mentioned. Is that doesn't seem normal.
Do you want me to talk on the specific issues, on the specific ones that were brought up, or just in general?
I think just generalizes.
I will say that, so first of all, the process. So there's processes in place in order to determine like water usage and that. So, and if we believe a meter is running an error, that, we will, like was mentioned, we will replace the meter and they'll do a bench test to determine if there is any errors in it. And the particular one that was mentioned before, actually we just got the bench test from Fenton because we decided to use an outside municipality just to keep our hands off of it. And then we're gonna reconfirm, but it came in within I think it was 100th of a 0.01 of a gallon accuracy. So as far as the accuracy of that. And a lot of, with the older pneumatic ones, the water actually has to pass through. In other situations, and I'll just mention the Big Papa's one that has been brought up several times, is that the village office contacted them about it, because when we see like higher than normal use, then we have procedures that, just, hey, we have an office members that will call and check in on them just to see what's going on so they know before they get hit with a big bill. And they stated to us, which is in our notes, that they've had a leaky toilet for 2 weeks and they're waiting for their landlord to fix it. And so that was what we attributed the increased usage for that one. I would say that there are things that I've been working with our utilities director and staff in order to educate the public about, as far as like calcium buildup, which we talked about in toilets, which you might have a leaky toilet and you don't know it's leaky because of that calcium buildup. And I personally don't know how to identify that, and so we're working on like creating some infographics or for some information that we can put out there, on the website, on social media, or anywhere else that people call in, that people can easily access and identify some of these issues. I don't know. I don't know if Brian, did you have any other comments on that? I think that. We could talk specifics about rates, but
I guess, based on your experience, maybe Director Kloss can answer too, is this something that happens in other municipalities, that you're gonna have someone that just spikes for an unknown reason?
normally, please, yeah, so people at home can hear you. And usually, as we know, we want to just because we've been researching this so much and having conversations, so I feel comfortable about us, talking on this right now.
Like Manager Price mentioned, the older style meter that was mentioned with the 46 units that went through it, it's a dual action piston meter. It's a mechanical meter, water goes through, pushes one piston up, goes through, pushes the other piston down, causes the meter to spin. Our newer meters are an iPro meter, the water flows through and it reads it that way. Our newer meters have the ability to get 30 days of 1 hour reads in 24-hour increments. So we've been able to solve some problems. So we have replaced that meter at the address with this newer meter, so if this happens in the future. They mentioned 0 reads. I reached out to our supplier. He said if that meter failed and stopped, it would be dead. It wouldn't restart. Usually with a 0 read, it's a wiring issue. How we read the meter is through what we call an MXU. It sends a signal out. We're able to pick that up as we drive by. So usually the wire's been disconnected, something like that, and the meter doesn't stop working. It just doesn't pick up that signal. So we have to go in and replace the wire. So a zero read versus an excessive use read are two different situations. So, and when we mentioned the calcium, inside the bowl or inside the tank of your toilet, there's an overflow, which is a safety measure, so you don't flood your bathroom. If calcium builds up around there, it raises the level of the water will flow down. As long as you have an unrestricted sanitary line going out to the road, you can stick a garden hose down there and it'll take the water all day long, 24 hours. And you usually don't hear that. When we say a running toilet, that's the flap on the bottom that's sticking. You hear that, you jiggle the handle, it stops running. You don't hear that running water noise anymore. A good suggestion is take a little bit of food dye, coloring, put it in there if you have a leak. You'll see it around the bowl. And there's just little things. We try to explain when we go out there. That's the last thing we want to do is be on social media with high water bills and, you know, but like I said, usually when we go out, 90-95% of the problem is a toilet. As soon as they turn that off, a lot of times it's people that haven't used the second bathroom for a long time, so that calcium builds up, starts running, and they don't realize until they get a high bill.
Thank you. Mr. Cascola?
Thank you. I have one other item, not related, well, still related to water, but I don't think there's any questions here. So thank you, sir. So the Finance Committee has met a couple times. I think we are, my understanding is we'll probably have to have more meetings to hash everything out, and we've been tasked with figuring out water rates. So there's been a couple discussions that we've had, and one of the items is how do we bring the parity or ensure that there is parity between our village users and the township users. So historically, outside the municipality, they had a higher rate for the commodity, it was 1.5. So we are going to be instituting, or hopefully staff will be, I don't know, directed them or whatnot yet, to actually have a study done and come up with some reasoning of where our numbers should be for that. There may be some discussion on, no, that's it.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you.
Thank you.
I have some comments on the DDA, the Mattson statement, and for Brittany and Jesse. I tried writing down her last name, but she was talking so fast to try and get it all out in time I didn't catch it. So the DDA update, they extended the interim director's position for 1 month. There are over 17 applications that have been turned in for the position of the full-time DDA director. An executive committee has been approved to interview the applicants and make a recommendation, and that includes the chair, the vice chair, the secretary, and one other board member who happens to have 20-plus years in HR. They are reviewing policies and creating policies to further transparency and create better checks and balances. These are being written and reviewed by, they will be reviewed by legal at my request, and that was with board approval. The board has been charged with being more involved on the north end and other businesses in their district. To clarify the comments from Ms. Mattson tonight, contrary to her statements, this village has 0 bells or whistles. Purchasing this building for our staff was necessary when KRC was torn down. There was only one other potentially viable long-term option, and that was renting from the township. And yet, the building they offered is still not opened and is, to the best of my understanding, several $1 million away from opening still. This council made the financially responsible decision. As far as reading the budget, we had an external auditing agency and a staff that showed us a general fund that could afford these expenses. We're not psychic, so I remain firm in my position that this board and the previous board made the best decisions that they could. Hard decisions have to be made, and many will be disappointed. But these decisions are our job. Garnering popularity is not. Our budget does not cover our expenses for basic maintenance and operations due to the Headley rollback's impact on our millage, period. And for Brittany and Jesse, they've got me considering, what would an audit of our water look like? Any kind of external accountability? Tim, is that something you can answer?
I am not familiar with that, but that's something we can research and provide more guidance on, or more recommendations on. I'm not sure what services are out there that can provide that.
If that's something we can look into, please. As far as the accusations towards extortion and illegal water shutoff, Mr. Gildner, could we have your input, please?
So, you know, I'm not familiar with their particular situation, but you have an ordinance which lays out the process. I'm confident that the process was followed. If, I took note of their complaint, and I'll look into it to see, but at this point in time, I trust that the administration did follow the ordinance and did what they're allowed to do.
Thank you, and we do look forward to your update. And, okay, that is it. At this time, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I will make the motion to adjourn this meeting.
Motion by Cole,
I'll second.
second by Ryan. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, go home. No, say nay, motion carried.